the loneliness epidemic is actually weighing so much on Gen Z that they're going to tap out, and that they have so much struggle going on and so much stuff going against them, it's not even funny. So one of my viewers asked me, hey, can you do a video on Gen Z and student loan debt and credit card and loneliness? And I was like, how is that? Why would I do that? And so I dig into it a little bit, and I kind of found that it's actually a real thing, and the numbers are actually shocking. So I found out that Gen Z, so let's go through the numbers actually. I've actually got reports and everything else. So let's start off. So Gen Z is about, the average is 18 to 26-year-olds, right? So they're getting out of college, they're kind of doing their own thing now. And now they're one of the loneliest generations. And why might that be? So I got some really, really good data. So Gen Z actually is facing problems in multiple areas of their life. So they're facing limited financial experience, high student loan debt, economic instability, and lack of financial literacy. So when you look at all of these things right now, some of it is our own fault as millennials and boomers because we brought this onto them. And I personally call Gen Z actually the iPad generation, right? Because what do you do when you want to shut your little kids up? You put them in front of an iPad, and that's it. So let's go over it. So the limited financial experience. So what worked for past generations or for millennials doesn't work anymore because we're in such high interest rate environments that whatever they did will not work now. So millennials had a short little time of actually buying a house, of getting into the housing market, real estate market, and actually securing a low mortgage. Even though it was competitive back then, for me, it was competitive, but I still made it and I still was able to actually buy. And now I got a super low interest rate at 2.8%. But when you're a Gen Z and you're looking at the housing market and it's in scrambles and you're going to pay 7.5% and nothing available on the market, what are you going to do, right? And then we've had this false promise of actually telling people, or Gen Z, that the student loan, that we forgive them. So we have all these student loan forgiving news out there that we're like, hey, we'll forgive your student loans, but it's not that easy. And that you're going to get your student loan forgiven is really, really unlikely because, yes, some of them might get it, but if you're taking out loans today, there needs to be a bigger talk about abandoning them because you can't just always keep forgiving, or then I'll go back to college and I'll take out a new loan, right? So now we're looking at it like, yeah, you gotta be financial literate, right? And student loan debt is crushing them. And then we have the student loan pause and all that. And so we are not in a great spot, right, for these Gen Zs. And that is all relating to mental health burden. And these kids need to wake up and go to work, right? And one other thing that I noticed is that these kids, the younger people, the Gen Zs, have to go to work now, because before they were during COVID, right? And that is one of the points here that they had, not this one, but one of these other ones. They said, COVID was a huge factor because school was remote, that all these options to be remote. So they sat in front of the computer. Some skills like social interactions with school and whatnot just didn't happen because they were sitting at home and doing their own thing. And now they're forced into going to the office, and the office is actually way, way different than they expected because you need to dress right, you need to do your things. And when you're not educated in that regards, right, then why would they say, hey, you gotta do it, right? So let's look at the next point. Economic instability, low wages, high inflation make to meet financial obligations, right? And I get that. And when I look at that, let's check out this next one. So LendingTree says in 2024, credit card debt statistics reported that shows Gen Z with the highest percentage of maxed out credit cards. So, and on my other one, it said that they're really into social media, right? They're really into social media. And when you're into social media like I'm doing, is I tell you guys what I want you to see. And you guys see all this stuff. That's because I choose to walk here. And if I wouldn't choose to walk here, you would not see it. And so this is for Gen Z. Social media isn't necessarily reality, right? Because you can portray the rich side and you can portray the flashy lifestyle, but nobody knows if that's, your parents' money, if that is all borrowed on credit cards. So you just don't know. And that is also another mental health burden, because who knows what's actually really going on? Because you can say, hey, I wanna, buy a boat, and then you can rent one and you put it on social media and he says, I just got this boat, I'm doing all these crazy things. When in reality, you're actually broke. And then your neighbor's like, oh my gosh, they just got a boat, they're doing all this, or my friends are on a boat today, and that puts you in depression. So if you have a Gen Z kid, you gotta be very aware that social media is not reality. And that's increasing in mental health, right? So the lack of financial literacy, right? They might not fully understand interest rates and the consequences of missed payment. So that is a huge one. I feel like the education side of the financial stuff is really, really not out there, because people don't understand viewpoints, right? So everybody has a viewpoint. As I'm doing right now, I'm telling you guys like what I think and what I see and what I see in the market. And depending on who you listen to, if you listen to Dave Ramsey, he tells you never go into credit card debt because it burned him. So, and I get that. If you got burned that bad off a credit card debt, you should probably not go into credit card debt. And if you can't have self-control, then you shouldn't do it, right? It's like if you're a heavy chain smoker and you don't want to smoke, you should probably go to places that don't allow you to smoke so you don't smoke more, right? But when your friends say, hey, let's go out smoke, smoke hookah or whatever, it's probably not a good idea because that entices you to smoke more, right? So that is just not great. And they don't teach you that in school, because why would they? Why would they teach you anything about credit scores, about how to pay your bills and how to do finances? Because it's just not worth it. So now let's look at some other stuff that's not really in the favor. They're saying COVID pandemic, the pandemic, social isolation measured. Yeah, so they do not feel like they're valued because they didn't get those interactions with than other kids did, right? So now I feel like we're at a such crucial spot in the world where we need to say, hey, technology is great and all, but we need to cope without it. We need to find like a middle balance, right? Because us as millennials, we got into the housing market and all these kind of other things, and we got slowly introduced to it, right? Just like phones and AI, we're slowly getting there. But I see my little nephews, they already know what an iPad is, and they sit in front of it. They know what Alexa is, and they can actually already order online with talking to Alexa. And I did not have these opportunities. I remember when I was growing up that at like 8, 9 o'clock, there were no more TV shows for kids, and they had specific channels. And if you did not pay for one of these channels, you couldn't do it. And YouTube wasn't so sophisticated back then when I grew up that I can tune into creators that actually made content for kids. I've never experienced that. I always had only they, back then the cameras weren't as great, and you couldn't really make that great of content, right? So now let's look at what else. So the economic pressure today in society, where they're in social media, they're like trimmed to be better, do better, to succeed. They're like pressure because you want the nice things in life, you want to do better, you want to increase your lifestyle, you want the nice things. And that's what kind of social media tells them. So now you're going into the world thinking, oh, I'm going to work remote. Because during the pandemic, there were all these people, and I remember it, that were actually saying, hey, this is a day in a life at Meta. This is a day in a life at TikTok. This is a day in a life at YouTube. And there wasn't any work. Nobody really worked. It was all fun and play. It was never any like, hey, I actually got to really work hard, or a construction worker, hey, this is in a life in a bricklayer, or this is a life in in a firefighter where we actually have to do something. No, it's always like, come to me, work at, at Facebook. So first thing you got to do is you got to get my oat milk latte chai, and I got to get my breakfast in. Then I got to go work out. Then I got to go do this. Then I run a few emails, and then I got to go eat lunch. Then I got to go take my nap in these pods, and then I'm done. And then I go home and, go out for drinks and do some, what do they call it? Bonding exercises with my team. That is not reality. And people do not get that this is not reality. Because when you don't have reality, then you're done. Because normally you show up at the office and you got to work your fannies off to make a paycheck, right? And if you're self-employed and you think, oh, I'll just start a business, or I'll invest in something, or I'll try to, I'll try to buy a trading course, you're not going to make it, because day trading and all of this stuff is difficult. You got to do your research, you got to figure it out, but you can't just go and start doing it and be like, yeah, this is how I'm going to make my money, or everybody be doing it, right? So now we're looking at all these things that Gen Z has against them, and what does that it result into? Loneliness, right? Because you feel like nobody kind of gets what you're doing. Nobody understands your problems. Nobody understands what what you guys are going through. And I actually get it. Like, now looking into the data, and I showed you all these facts, I get why they're depressed, because you just can't get ahead. When I look at interest rates now, they're so high and you can't get ahead. Now I got laid off too, and you can't get a remote work. You got to apply for 500 jobs to get a remote job. You can't make it. How can you wake up in the morning and be stoked about going to your job because it's in person? You were like, I want a remote one, but those are so competitive that you just can't do it, right? So a bunch of crazy things happened where that it didn't align with their views and their values, right? And to get a job at Facebook and Meta requires a bunch of knowledge, a bunch of skills that most people don't have. Personally, I don't think I could get hired at Meta or Google because, I lack all these skills. So yeah, let me know what you think, why Gen Z has a loneliness epidemic and why they can't get ahead. Because I think it's just all of these factors combined. And when you factor all of these things combined, it's just not great. And when you look at the boomer generation or millennials, we had low interest rates. It had ups and downs. We had the financial crisis in 2008, but it didn't really, it bounced back and we made money, right? And for Gen Zs, the bounce wasn't really there because, you were still in college. You didn't experience that, right? So yeah, it is very, very detrimental for these young people to get out there in the workforce and experience reality. And now, I saw another one actually by random, like I think like TikTok and, YouTube algorithm, when you start searching for them, shows you stuff. And there was this one creator, or this one vlogger, I should say, said, hey, I got fired 3 times from my job, from different jobs in the last year. And it was all due to departments letting me go. It was never her fault. That's what she claims. I have no idea of verifying. But she said I got fired 3 times because they shut my apartment, my department down. They said, oh, we're gonna not do that. And so that leaves scars. That leaves scars and scarcity, right? So when you're in a mindset of like, hey, I finally got a job, and then they fire you, you gotta be like, oh my gosh, I got a job search again. So then you're like, oh, I got this new job. Then they fire you again and you get your 3rd job. And then they fire you again because they do restructuring and all that. At what point do you say, I'm never gonna be loyal to a company and I'm never gonna be not job searching? And that's going to create a whole nother problems for these companies, because these companies are going to have to say, hey, we're doing, the 2 years, like millennials stayed for 2 years in their job, but that might come to an end too, because now Gen Z is going to say, you know what, you guys, screwed us over with with firing all of us. So if I get another option, if I get a better deal, I might only work at your company for 6 months. If somebody offers me a better deal, you guys get it to me, so I'm gonna do it to you, right? And so then you create this whole ecosystem of, hey, somebody pays me more, I'm out. And you guys did it to me. So, an eye for an eye, right? So they do whatever they're been told and what they've been taught on at an early career person, right? So this is, as a senior leader, you need to be very aware that this is going to come back and haunt you, right? Because it's not all, oh, it's Gen Z, it's Gen Z. No, it's also leadership, because you guys make the decisions of firing people and doing that. And then you've created the Gen Z generation of where they're going to say, oh, it costs, so much to hire a new employee, and it costs this much to train them. And as soon as they're trained, they're going to bounce. And then you're like, well, they got to stay, a year or two for us to make an ROI, but we can't keep them. And then they're going to complain, and then they're going to go on to Fox News, CNN, and says, we can't retain the talent. And this is not because of them, that is because of you, because of what you did to them when they started working. So we need to have conversations and start saying, hey, we did things wrong, but nobody would ever admit that, because they're just like, hey, then I've admit guilt, or then you got to say, hey, I've admit guilt, and we need to correct this and trying to be better in the future. But that is not what they're going to do, because if they're going to say, oh, it has been like this forever and we're going to retire soon, so we don't care. After me, whatever happens after me, I do not care. And so then it's this cycle of companies going down, filing for bankruptcies, can't retain talent, and it's the snowball that rolls into who knows what. And this is where I'm going to say, let me know where you think this is going. And yeah, so this was kind of my perspective. A little longer video. Still in Switzerland. This is like day 4. Today I'm not doing too much. It's kind of hot out. Taylor Swift's coming to Zurich, so it's kind of crazy. And trying to stay at the house, just cleaning up my garage. I'll send you some videos of me actually cleaning up my stuff that I don't need anymore, and trying to get rid of stuff, trying to declutter. Got so much junk, for that accumulated over the years. So I'll send you some stuff that I'm decluttering, but not going places. Tomorrow, though, I'm driving to a super sweet cafe to get some to go to a bakery. So I'm gonna film there, and I'll show you some real beautiful scenery from Switzerland. So make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I got a few short clips, and then I'm out.